AskReddit by between the pause. Blanket NDAs are now illegal. What can you finally tell us about your former employer? They bought back a shitload of shares from employees under the pretense of we know the extra cash is better now than later, and then went public shortly thereafter. The bonus is that the CEO then admitted he was using some of that money to finance his divorce. That's so slimy, probably happens all the time. They misused pandemic assistance funds. Feds have finally started going after people for this, never too late to put in a tip. They tried to get me to sign one when I retired, but I just laughed at them and walked out. When you retire, you are not under any circumstances required to sign an NDA. My former employer tried to get me to sign one at my exit interview. Yeah, not happening. Didn't like it when I told them I'd take it to my attorney, either. Attorney laughed. I never signed one. Still got my last paycheck. I worked for a school district that changed grades to boost graduation rates. My daughter has actually noticed that happening for her. She is at an early college high school, failing her college class, and yet somehow has an A on her report card instead of an F. When they promised to be sure she was successful, that's not what I had in mind. I worked for the political consultant best known in DC circles for having gotten a dead fish in the mail from Rahm Emanuel. The consultant was a super weird boss, full of shady business practices, including expensing all of his personal shit like family vacations to the business. But this is a story that tends to blow minds. My former employer had me print out his emails so he could handwrite his responses, which I would type up and send back. Eater, no, I wasn't his assistant lol. He was too cheap to hire one. So he'd pull people off time-sensitive client projects to do this crap, which turned everything into chaos. One of the many reasons turnover was high and the business failed. I worked for an attorney in his 60s who did the same thing with emails. We literally had folders we used for the inbox and sent mail. Deleted. Not gonna lie, that's kind of genius. One of my old bosses reprimanded an employee after the employee called HR to file a complaint about him. This is because the HR employee happened to be a friend of the boss in question, and the HR employee blabbed about it to the boss. The boss did not get fired, but he did get reassigned not long after. Not sure what happened to the HR employee. HR works for the company, it's not there to help employees. His son, my manager, was a child molester. He had been raping a 10-year-old girl for a little over a year and only got charged with rape. Not rape of someone under 18 or 16 or whatever, not child molestation. Nope, just rape, and we live in a small town and it's fucking easy to find if you look up his name. And people are still letting him around their little kids. I quit the next day after I found out. How does stuff like this happen without anyone in the community taking care of the problem? The weather forecasting company I worked at a while back didn't actually forecast. They just copy-pasted products from the National Weather Service and slapped their logo on it. As a meteorologist who has my own weather software but meets up with vendors that my boss likes, this is about 2/3 RDS of the weather forecasting companies. The worst part is that I'm literally willing to hand them the code to my software to make the NWS data more usable for my industry, and in 13 years, exactly one company has even shown interest. It is infuriating. I worked for a company that fucked up itself by biting off more than it could chew, and then a competitor went under, which flooded the market and fucked over the company I work for even more. Most of the company has been laid off by now. CEO went before anyone else. The new CEO? The same fucking shitty CEO that sunk their competitor. Who the fuck would see a competitor fail, have it nearly take themselves down too, and then hire the same fucking idiot a few weeks later? I feel like I can relate this to my love life somehow. A company I worked for allowed a subcontractor to seize worker passports and did nothing while the subcontractor withheld pay, which directly led to the suicide of a few of my employees. That the founder is purposely bankrupting the companies so no inheritance will be left to the family. Call me old-fashioned, but in my day company founders blew it all on hookers and blow to screw over the family. I worked for a great fintech startup that got acquired by another company that was pretending to be a fintech, but was actually a private equity company that would buy and gut competition. The owner of the new company is a real-life billionaire villain. He bought an island and cut off beach access to the locals. A real piece of shit. My team wasn't touched in the acquisition because we were deploying the product to the customers, so we were the ones that brought in the revenue. At one point, the new owner was a huge twat to my awesome boss. At that point we started a mass exodus. 90% of the team left in the next 2 months. This killed a $10 million project and set the fuckers' acquisition goals back by years. I know who this is. I worked for the company many years ago. Lots of Italians. 2 different places I worked created roles for minorities with a plan to not retain them so they can hire more minorities to satisfy quotas. If you were any good, they would promote you to a real job and hire another minority. Someone in HR told me the reports only show how many the company hires, not how many they keep. Reminds me of some women-owned business things. Once we got a directive that we couldn't purchase items from X company anymore. We had to order that through Y. Y was a woman-owned business. Y also was the wife of the head of X company, and X did all shipping and fulfillment. Deleted. You can report them. Blow that whistle. I unlocked the file cabinet, took my NDA along with the whole stack of NDAs and shredded them. I never told anyone. I just didn't want anyone else to be hurt by the horrible company I was working for if they did end up saying something. I was able to save a patient's life by speaking out. The company was going to sue me but never did. The lady I saved sends me a $50 gift card for a local grocery store every Christmas. She sends it anonymous, but I know it's her because she's the only one I know in that city where it's sent from. Because that's what heroes do. Deleted. It's sad such a Canadian institution went to shit this way. Side note, always buy jewelry from a mom and pop shop. You might get an even better price quality if it's an Armenian or Jewish jeweler. Well, at least in Montreal. I worked at the food production plant that makes all your fast food fries. Do not ever eat curly fries. The line does not go down long enough to fully clean. That batter is a week old on that line and covered in ground germs. And we're still picking off golf balls and sprinklers heads up until packaging. And I am talking about Arby's and Jack in the Box. Fuck, you colder, just let me die happy. DynCorp, a huge govt contractor, hired hundreds of foreign nationals to work in Afghanistan. They refused to pay them for months, eventually abandoning a lot of them. Telling those that quit that they are responsible for their own way home. DynCorp is also heavily implicated with Epstein's child trafficking operation. They laid off 160 people so they could afford to give the COO a 30% raise. Did you and I work for the same company? Did they shift HR demons from branch to branch while falsifying documentation to justify the layoffs? The filtered water dispenser in the cafeteria produced floaty chunks of goodness for so long a time. I had to drink bottled water. Fuck, I had this on a certain construction job. Apprentice decided it was a good idea to add Kool-Aid to the water dispenser. Fuck that filter all up. Anyone want some Jamba Juice recipes? Strawberries wild, please. The CEO's daughter accused me of rape because I wouldn't alter any official documents. She wanted to hide her excess spending of company money from her father. When I was proven innocent, Her father offered a hefty sum on top of my severance package so that I wouldn't press charges. I had to sign the NDA in order to get both, but it officially expired 4 days ago. Edit. My lawyer advises against saying the name as I could be sued for slander. But if they paid you off in exchange for not pressing charges and you were found legally innocent, where's the slander? A big gym in the northeast of the USA used to be a local favorite until they made big moves and went public. It used to be run by cool people who loved fitness, and they hired people from big corporations like the oil industry to run certain parts for going public. Everything went to shit. First internally, and then soon after a few years I think the company was sold into a lesser thing that it originally was. Sounds like Average Joe's got bought out by Globo Gym. Like any narcissist, at least one of his kids hate him. He moved to exploit workers while you had to pull teeth to get a raise. He exploited covered loans and ended up with a brand new Tesla. He always told me not to have an us vs them mentality, while constantly reminding me that I'm upper management and not to be friendly with my staff. I came from the bottom up in that company and my staff meant the world to me. I was firm when needed, but they all knew I had their backs. After 10 years, I got fired 2 weeks after I came home from vacation. BC a suck up kissed his ass. He had told me upon coming back that I'd never have the GM position when the current retired. Once all that happened, I stopped doing extra. Kiss ass guy works 75 hours a week after I got fired and then quit. They spent 6 months having to redo everything. BC I was the one who developed our digital systems. Almost all of my old staff quit within that time. The company I work for now I absolutely love. They really appreciate me and my experience. Never going to manage a place like that again. BC I don't want that pressure. 5 years was long enough. We also have a lot of their clients, so it's funny that it happened. I want production workers, like those who worked with the Duggars, etc., to spill some major tea. A security guy for the Duggars did an Amber in Douglas narc a few months ago. Barclays would refund those charges for exceeding your overdraft if it was clear you had a good income or decent savings. But they'd enforce those charges on the poor single mothers who were struggling to live. Being poor is expensive. You can't DSC us YRW Aggies. Bitch, we all knew you were hiring people at a higher wage than people who had been there 4 years and had more qualifications. Isn't it federally protected to discuss wages? That the bottom line is more important than life, the environment, the employees. Whole departments were dedicated to costs analysis of shortcuts, breaking the law, etc. Adhering to EPA rules cost more than the fine? Pollute and take the fine. Saving a worker's life costs more than a wrongful death litigation. Go ahead and kill them. The president put the embezzled money into a separate account called advertising.